This World Regions Geography 110, Southeast Asia, Part 1. So when we talk about Southeast Asia, we're talking about this region right up in here. And here it is blown up here. And what you see is you have the Philippines, Timor-Leste, which is this island, this portion of the island of Timor. And then you have Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, and Burma. Singapore, which is right down there, is also an independent country. It can get kind of lost. It's just a small end of the peninsula, of the Malay Peninsula. So Southeast Asian climate, it's has a unique climate. It has two monsoons, and they run from November to March. Excuse me. And that's when the islands and the mainland have differing experiences on the north slope. So the November to March monsoon comes out of the north. It flows down. It leaves this area largely dry, and any rain that drops hits the north side of the hills along here and the north slopes of all of these islands. The islands are cooler and wetter during this monsoon, and the mainland is cooler and drier. In the June to August monsoon, wind is coming the opposite direction. Wind originates in the Indian Ocean. The entire region receives rain, so it drives a lot of rain up here into the interior continental part of Southeast Asia. And Sumatra is impacted by the ITZZ, so it's getting rain all the time. August to October is the typhoon season, with storms originating in the Indian Ocean. So the storms in the Indian Ocean will hit into this region right here and bring heavy winds and lots of rain. Physiographic regions of Southeast Asia. There are 4 tectonic plates collide in Southeast Asia. The Eurasian plate, which is up here, the Philippine plate, right over here, Pacific plate, and the Australian plate, which is down here slamming into it. So the Australian plate's moving north, and it's pushing these islands along here up. And what you have is a long line here of tectonic activity. So you're going to have volcanoes, you're going to have lots of earthquakes, there's a lot of tectonic activity. You may have some mountains, some orogenesis here, some mountain building. Here you have the Pacific plate moving this direction, slamming in here. This is Java here, and now this is also going to have a lot of tectonic activity, volcanoes, earthquakes. The Marianas Trench is the deepest trench. Where you have a trench like that, it's where the ocean bottom is actually subducting underneath the Philippine plate. So the Pacific plate is subducting underneath the Philippine plate. So as it goes underneath it, it melts. And as it melts, it flows over and starts to come up along here, and that's what creates that Pacific Rim of fire. Now you have the Mindanao, Philippines Trench right along here. A lot of tectonic activity, so you're going to have a lot of earthquakes, a lot of volcanoes. And then you have the Manila Trench along here running up towards past Formosa, towards China. And that's also going to drive a lot of tectonic activity. Not so much in terms of volcanic activity, but mainly earthquakes. Now you see, this is the direction that the Pacific plate is moving this direction, which is driving the Philippine plate this direction. There will probably be a time where the Philippine plate disappears entirely. It won't be exposed anymore. Now there's also conflicting territorial claims in this region. So what you have here in this South China Sea, there's a lot of shipping. About 54% of all global shipping traffic goes through here. And so what you have is some low-lying areas, in other words, areas that are barely below the surface of the ocean. maybe 30, 40, 50 feet below. Various countries are building up, mainly China is building up these atolls into islands and then claiming them as territory. And they're laying claim to all of this region up here. It's probably going to lead to a conflict in the region. The World Court recently decided that China can't claim this, that it belongs to other countries, particularly this region right in here. And part of the reason they're doing that is because they believe there's a lot of natural gas and oil in there, and they want to get part of it. So you have all these countries, you have China, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam all claiming part of this area. And the World Court has decided that it belongs to the Philippines and to Brunei and some of these other areas, but not to China. And I think there will end up being some conflict over that. Whether it will be a war or not, I don't know. River drainage, another big issue. So there are only really a few rivers in Southeast Asia. The Irrawaddy, the Chao Phraya, the Mekong, and the Red River. The Red River here flows through Hanoi out of China, comes out of China, flows south into the Gulf of Tonkin near Hanoi. The Chao Phraya is down around here, drains Thailand, drains this basin right in here. The Irrawaddy drains Burma, this region up in here. And the Mekong, which is the largest, comes way up here out of Tibet and flows down and all the way through Southeast Asia. It's the major river. The rivers are important historically and culturally. Biodiversity and Wallace's line. Now, Wallace's line, we talked a little bit earlier about this line of biodiversity. This is Wallace's line, and Wallace was a geographer in the 19th century, botanist, and he spent a lot of time chronicling plant and animal life on both sides of this line. And what he found is this line that goes right through here divides species. So what you see is species that are on this side are not on this side. It's a very unique place in that there is a very substantial line that runs through these islands and completely divides the species. So when you're north of this line, you have one set of animal, flora and fauna, and south of it you have a separate set. So it's a real unique place. It's a land bridge to Indonesia's islands. So all of these, important area for biodiversity, plant diversity, animal diversity. It's all extremely important. It's one of the most diverse areas in the world, this region right through here. But as you can see, when you look at this map, you see how diverse it is up here and here. And it's relatively not here. It's not nearly as diverse right in this once you get south of the line. And I think that's a pretty interesting fact. Forests and deforestation. So there's a varied response to deforestation in Southeast Asia. When you look here at the graph, first thing you start noticing is some countries are doing a good job in promoting their forest regrowth. Thailand is maintaining theirs. Vietnam is improving theirs. Singapore really doesn't have much, so it doesn't matter. Philippines is doing a good job. But you look at the rest of Southeast Asia, and they're continuing to lose forest, which means with the forest loss comes a loss of diversity, because the species that exist in the forest are very interrelated. So when you start having a loss of forest, you start having a loss of diversity, and that has long-term impacts not only for the forest in the region but for the globe. So I think it's something to really pay attention. There's a pretty good little article in the textbook about it. I would suggest you read it. Biodiversity. So the region is one of the most diverse on the planet. But deforestation threatens the biodiversity. You can kind of see when you look through here, this is the number of plant species. This is the number of mammal species, fish species. Now, these little dots are the Global Environmental Facilities Index. So that's globally where it's at. So when you start seeing some of these things, that has a pretty big impact on it. You see some of them doing well, some of them not doing so well. Diversity of plant, mammal, and fish species are significant compared to global averages. Threats to the Mekong River system. So there are some existing dams that are already there. You see right along here, you see some dams. They're mainly in China. There's a couple, Laos and Vietnam and Cambodia are building some dams. You get down here, they're building some dams, but there's dams under construction, and then there's also proposed dams. You see all these proposed dams. The Chinese are trying to capture this water and divert it into China. Other countries, Laos, Cambodia, or also Thailand, are trying to tap into the Mekong and pull water off for agriculture and for drinking water. And that brings the water diversion issue, because there are some unique species. There's Mekong River dolphins, which are one of the few freshwater dolphin species anywhere. There are others in the Amazon. There are large catfish species that are unique to the Mekong River Delta. If you watch any of the fishing shows, you may have seen something about those on the fishing show. But the point is that if you slow down this volume and start changing this a lot, you're not only going to destroy a way of life, a cultural experience, but you're also going to change forever the flora and fauna in these regions. And I think pollution, all of these issues are starting to have more and more of an effect. And I think you'll see more problems with it. And you may see some conflict between places like Vietnam and Laos, or Cambodia and Vietnam, or Thailand and Vietnam. So you may see some conflict over this in the near future. Particularly if global warming continues, you're going to begin to see some problems that may arise as people start fighting over who's going to get the water. Colonialism in Southeast Asia. Colonialism has a big impact. You had French Indochina. So this was French controlled, taken in the 1880s. Saigon as early as 1864. But basically, the French controlled all this until after World War II. And then you began to see the breakup of it. Siam, which is Thailand, has always been an independent country. Burma was a British protectorate and British colony. Malay was British colony. And Singapore was actually a city founded by the British. There was no city there before the British. And they founded it to control these straits here for shipping. And then Sumatra was Dutch. So this was Dutch East Indies. And this Timor-Leste here, this end, is actually a Portuguese colony. And this Philippines at one time was Spanish colony until 1898, and then it became a U.S. colony. And then it was occupied by the Japanese until 1945, and then it became an independent country. This is a Christian country in Southeast Asia. Same with the Philippines. The rest of it tends to be Buddhist and animist and Muslim.